Good evening, administrators, and good evening, members of the public, and those of you joining us in YouTube land as well. I understand that you're here perhaps to make a statement to the board.
Yes. Do that now?
Please do.
You can do pledge.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. We have to do the pledge to the flag. I'm sorry. My apologies.
I'll fill in.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first item on our agenda tonight is communications from the public and press. Please tell us who you are and what you'd like to say.
Yeah, my name is Carolyn Cook. I'm currently president of the Massena Artists Association. It's an association that's been around for over 36 years, and it's a not-for-profit. The decision I'm looking for is we've learned that you may have Chromebooks available that you're retiring, and we're interested in purchasing 3 of those books for a nominal fee. A little background about the group, quick summary. Our association is about sharing art and learning to become better artists. It's a community-wide organization. We host 4 shows every year, art shows, including one show that has Massena High School art students at the show. The students get to enter the show for free. They also get a chance for a handful of them to judge the work of the other community non-student members' work. So it's a great opportunity for the kids to not only participate in a real art show, but they also get to practice some of the skills they learned from the art teachers on how to critique artwork. Our group is very low-tech. We are trying to improve our accuracy of information and also tracking of information. To pull off a show, it takes a lot of work and a lot of transferring of information back and forth between people. And we think if we had Chromebooks with Google Doc, we could do that much more efficiently and more accurately. Any questions for me? Let me know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else here to make a statement before the board? Moving on then, we have no official board correspondence that I'm aware of, and so we'll move on to information and reports, and start with the reports from board members and the Facilities Committee report. Mr. LeBlanc is not here tonight, but Superintendent Burke is going to fill us in briefly on the facilities meeting.
So the number one topic of our conversation was the upcoming capital project and the estimated cost of our list of items so far. And we are basically now looking back at reprioritizing our list and rebudgeting some of those items. One of the things that we also discussed were the fiscal aspects of it, and we're now looking at a 3 to 5 year plan for capital projects. We have what's called a maximum cost allowance, and I'll give more information to the board over the next couple of weeks on that. And even though we just finished up a major capital project with a lot of work done at the elementary schools, we have money that's actually on the books that's allowed to be used at the elementary buildings. So we're going to be going back to the drawing board and coming back with a proposal on the next for this capital project that will also involve some more additional work at the elementary. And part of the rationale for that is that money is there. We receive about 97% aid, and we should be using it. If we don't use it, we basically lose it. And we do know that we have some work to do at the elementary. The high importance items that are the big cost ones really all focus here at the high school. HVAC at the high school, refurbishing the pool or renovating the pool, the turf on the athletic field, and some or all of the roofs here at the high school. Those are the biggest ticket items. We certainly have some other work to do with the transportation facility, which we also talked about, not just the electrification for buses, but also the roof there and the HVAC system there as well. We also discussed the importance of adding air conditioning to the schools, but doing it in such a manner that we can actually afford it, which would really come down to, at this point, the large gathering areas. So the cafeterias, the auditoriums, gymnasiums, Anywhere that we might be doing testing in the spring, late spring, especially at the high school or at the junior high. And our next meeting is this coming Monday, the 25th.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burke. Moving on to our student ex officio report, and Ms. Beard.
Okay, so this past Tuesday, I met with the junior high student council, and we discussed the concerns with their past Halloween dance, which was a big debacle. And one of the students recommended having the SRO officer attend future dances so that both parents and students feel safe continuing to have dances at the junior high. Students also at the junior high expressed that they feel they have no time to visit their counselors during the day, and they also mentioned that lunch was way better this year. I attended a DEI meeting at the high school, which was comprised of students and teachers, and the major concern from that meeting was the lack of 3 o'clock buses this year. They do understand that there is a bus driver shortage, but after school clubs are suffering and potential scholarship opportunities are taken away from students who don't have transportation and cannot add to their transcript, and also help in class. Students are lacking in extra help because they can't stay after school. Our activity fair is this Thursday. During the half day, we're going to have an after school club convention in the lobby so students can see the clubs that are available for them to join, and parent-teacher conference is later that day. A lot of the students and teachers were recently discussing the effectiveness of parent-teacher conferences, however. That's all I have.
Interesting that there was a suggestion made that the SRO should be at the junior high dances. I guess I would have assumed that that would be the case.
Typically, we have not, because typically there's not really an issue. And the issue that we had this past time was a rumor that started going around about an assault and a possible stabbing, which were unfounded. With some of the bigger dances like homecoming, we do ask for police, at least just to make their way through the parking lot. They can certainly feel free to stop in. Typically, they'll make the appearance in the parking lot. And same thing with the prom. Again, not that we're trying to catch anyone, but just try to keep our kids safe. So I've talked a little bit already with our SRO, and we'll continue to have more conversations.
Any questions or comments for Ms. Beard?
Yeah, what was the issue with the proposed resolution to the counselors and the lack of access to the counselors at the junior high, was it?
Yes, it was in the junior high. The students were saying that they feel they have no time to speak to their counselors during the day, and their schedules are too jam-packed for them to leave class, and they are not allowed to leave during lunch, is what I'm told.
Any other questions or comments for Isabel?
Can we get some more? I guess I think it would be could we get more information on some of the resolutions to these issues? Because I don't want to just have her talk about a bunch of issues and then we don't ever. I don't want to not ask questions about it, but I also don't want to not follow up on it somehow or hear about it as well, if it's founded.
Yep. So I'll be talking with Mr. Halliday more about, because there's sometimes perception versus reality, but there's probably also more to it than that even. So I just want to get a better sense and making sure that students have access to our counselor and to our social worker. But I want to get more from that, and I'll share those concerns.
So can we hear about whatever was resolved about these issues? Is there any, is there a chance for busing or whatever the opportunity she mentioned here for not getting enough help, or they don't have access?
Right.
Isn't there a 12th period or something like that here?
Yes, there's after school. There's just no 3 o'clock buses, so students who don't have transportation cannot find a way home unless they leave at 2:16.
So that resolution is the easiest one, but also the most difficult. I just need about 3 more bus drivers.
Okay.
Or combine a run to
Yep.
produce, yep.
Okay.
And again, those are things that are certainly in the works.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yep.
Can I ask, Isabel, you may or may not know, how many lunch periods do they have at junior high?
I believe it's 2, but I'm not sure. 3? 3. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so you have an A lunch, a B lunch, a C lunch? Okay.
Any other questions for Isabel? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the President's report. First up is the Student Ex Officio Handbook is on the agenda for approval this evening. The idea for this document came out of a Board Officers Academy training that I attended, and like a lot of really good ideas, a lot of the content has been stolen from other folks that have done the same thing. My primary source for a lot of the information in this book was from the Schenectady City School District's Student Board Member Manual, and there were also some other online resources that I found that were consulted. Once the text was drafted and Ashley put it into the 5x8 format that you see linked, we ran it by Mr. Oliver and Mr. Fryman, and also Isabel, and also by trustees Giroux and Monroe. And I haven't really heard anything by way of negative feedback. Everyone seemed to think it read pretty well. So I think it's ready to go, but I would just have a proviso that this handbook, as well as our Board of Education handbook that we have access to now, should be looked at periodically, probably once a year, and just make sure that everything is up to date and that it works for the board that is, currently seated.
What about the annual meeting?
Annual meeting.
Could they be reviewed at the
At
annual meeting and be put on the docket at the annual meeting?
They could. We could also take a little bit of time at our dinner meeting in July to look that over. That would be a possibility. So that's on the agenda for tonight. Any questions on that document? Okay, next thing I have is just a quick recap of New York State School Boards Association Convention. Last month, trustees LeBlanc, Giroux, and myself attended NYSBA Convention, and I think we have some visual, right behind us, some visual proof that we were there. We had our picture taken with the keynote speaker from day one. That was Sophia, the AI robot. Sophia was interviewed by Executive Director Bob Schneider, and she talked about a number of topics in education related to artificial intelligence, and that was a thread that kind of ran through the entire convention. The day two keynote speaker was education author and researcher Dan Fitzpatrick from Great Britain, who took us through a lot of the very quickly evolving thinking on artificial intelligence. One of the things that I kind of took away as far as the message was concerned is that it's true that AI scares a lot of people. It's sort of the Wild West, a great unknown in a lot of ways, but his message was that as human beings, we have a need for interaction with other humans. So it's very unlikely that AI is going to completely take over the world. Workshop-wise, I attended a day-long Board Officers Academy training. I also went to a workshop on the My Brother's Keeper program, which we have here in Massena, but this was related to a program that is run in Uniondale, Long Island, and how it influences student culture among young men there. I also attended a really good session focused on onboarding of new trustees, and I think down the road you'll see some ideas that I picked up coming into play in our own onboarding methodology here in Massena for bringing on and acclimating new trustees. Also attended a workshop called Strategies for Effective Board Meetings. You may see some tweaks in how our meetings are run as a result of that. That's not everything I attended, but I wanted to give Joyce an opportunity to kind of tell us a little bit about her experience at the convention.
Thank you, Mr. Haggett. And actually, thank you to the district for the opportunity to go to the convention. It was very educational, very worthwhile, and just happened to take place in my favorite place on the planet, New York City. And I attended mostly the AI track of workshops because I was afraid of it as well, and the impact on education, and wanted to learn more about it. Dan Fitzpatrick, that Mr. Haggett mentioned, said that if we were to stop using AI tomorrow, if there were a ban, it's done, we're done, that's it. It would take 20 years to unpack it at this point. And the problem that they really have, because it's growing so quickly, is that there isn't enough energy being produced to support it. So that has to improve too. But we need to embrace it, we need to approach it with intent. There's a lot of good to it in terms of education with teachers and students. Teachers can create lesson plans, they can do IEPs, scheduling. Students, of course, he said AI should be looked at as being a calculator for words. I remembered that, I thought that was very interesting, a calculator for words. So there's a lot that can be done, we shouldn't be afraid, but there's a lot to learn about it for sure. Let's see what else. Oh, there's one interesting thing that this Dan Fitzpatrick spoke about was a tool called School AI. It's a tool for teachers and students. Students can chat with historical figures. Now, wouldn't that be interesting? I also went, one more thing about that, I think. AI, personalized learning. You can, there's differentiation in your lesson plans, more student engagement, data collection, attendance trends in terms of administration. How about second language for students using the translators? We know what that's, the trouble we're having with that, right? AI tools for students with disabilities, professional development. It's mind-blowing, actually. There's a lot to learn, and I'm really curious about it. I also went to a workshop on electric buses. Oh boy, we're not alone in this, though. The presenter was from the National Grid, so he had a foot in this, you know. He was saying that the buses, the electric buses, can handle 150 miles daily, and that they would be charged overnight. So my hand went up and I said, well, we do night sports runs all the time. What happens then? Oh, you have to stagger it. I don't think he's been up in the North Country and knows about the distance between schools, because he also said that it takes, that of course the cold temperatures are a problem. And he said, well, you know, most of us in New York, 2 days a year maybe, it gets to that kind of cold. My hand went up again. I said, how about 2 months a year? You need to come up and visit the North Country and see what it's really like, because it may not be really feasible. We should be applying for grants now for these buses. I don't think it's going to go away. So, and they are planning for fleet assessment needs. We can get a fleet assessment need for free, actually. But we're not alone in the fear over it. The people who were attending had a lot of negative feelings about it, whether it was going to work or not. But it's a couple years down the line, so hopefully things will improve. Those were the two major workshops that I went to.
Unfortunately, Robert's not here tonight, so he probably won't have a chance to weigh in, but I can also say that the three of us actually had a lot of fun in the off hours as well. We walked around Broadway, we checked out some very interesting restaurants for sure. Next year's NYSSBA convention is also in New York City. I really would encourage those of you on the board that have not attended a convention to go and check it out. New York was certainly a lot of fun. The convention, and for my money, pretty much any NYSSBA event is very educational, very well run, and you're going to get something really good out of it. Moving on, my last thing, and I have a feeling we may get into a little bit of a discussion here, has to do with regionalization. There continues to be lots of discussion about regionalization all over New York. Everything from concern to panic, basically, and the filing of lawsuits. By far, the loudest voices of dissent continue to come from Long Island, where there is both money and political clout, and the least dependence on state aid. So there's a consortium of school districts that are making a lot of noise about regionalization, and it's very anti. State lawmakers there have introduced legislation to dismantle it, and several districts have filed suit, as I mentioned. In a lot of the rest of the state, including here, there's concern, but also a thought that at the end of the day, we have to work with SED because of our dependence on the state to fund our schools. Locally, Mr. Burke has sent a letter to the Board of Regents outlining his concerns on behalf of our board, and I've also sent my own comments on regionalization because we are in the 60-day public comment period on the rulemaking that made it into the New York State Register. We've tried to get clarification from the commissioner and her deputies on in person by attending events as to what actually is required under the rulemaking process. A couple of weeks ago, I attended an SED town hall event along with Mr. Oliver and Ms. Charleston from the district. Currently, SED is saying publicly that the only requirement is to have the local districts meet and convene under the auspices of the BOCES and have conversations. Develop the plan, and that there is no requirement for the local districts to participate if they don't choose to. The argument on Long Island is very different. They're saying that the published language in the New York State Register for regionalization makes it clear that everybody has to participate. So we really don't know what the true answer is at this point, I don't believe. The state officials are telling us that there's little to nothing to worry about. This is a conversation. The folks downstate are going as far as filing lawsuits to stop it. And whether local districts participate is just one question. There's also the question of, will it further erode the authority of local boards of education? Will it give oversight powers to BOCES superintendents that, over the affairs of local districts, something that they've never had before? And the thing that Kevin raised initially when we first started talking about regionalization, will we be forced to spend our local taxpayers' money on programs that benefit kids outside of our local district?
The answer should be no. And the way that that can happen is by not overcommitting anything through the convening process.
So,
But
you're fine. It was my intent and my hope to have, more of a conversation about this. The public has until November 24th to comment on regionalization. Mr. Burke has shared his comments with us. I'm happy to do the same if you'd like to read the comments that I sent along to the Board of Regents. I can, we've shared the many of the emails from the Long Island Coalition. There's lots of information there if anyone else on the board wants to write up their own comments and weigh in on their concerns or not concerns over regionalization.
This has been a frustrating process to watch this regionalization rolled out, or not. It seems as though it wasn't well organized or planned, or if it was, there's a massive hidden agenda that is yet to be seen. I don't know how they could come up with a plan with individual school districts to just, like, again, going back to the taxing process, how they can just blur those lines and just ignore them and expect people to worry about someone across another taxing entity. They don't worry about what goes on in New Jersey, and New York's dollars don't go over to New Jersey, I would hope, or to Pennsylvania, or to Ohio. So, I don't know if we hit Ohio, maybe we don't, but pretty close. But either way, it's not any different. So, I don't know how they can come up with this idea. I guess they're using it as a means to create more opportunities for kids, but they seem to ignore the structure that we live in order to get to that. And they're the people that should know that and understand that. And if they don't, then I don't know how they got to the position they're in to come up with that stuff. It bewilders me. I tried to explain that to the regent when I met with him on a sidebar conversation. And I don't know. And I guess I'm sort of frustrated that this comes out of the bureaucracy of SED, goes to the regents. It seems as though maybe, I don't know if there was any contention from the regent's stance or if it was just a rubber stamp on up through to the rest of us. That troubles me as well. Because if this comes from the bureaucracy, going back to what the Long Island people say, where's the representation? We are a representative government. Where's the representation from bureaucrats if they're dictating this? Mm-hmm. We are left out of being represented through the election process. So, anyway, I don't want to get myself all cranked up. It's getting close to bedtime.
So, Paul, you and Ron and Nicole went to Indian River?
Well, it was actually Alan,
Alan.
and myself.
Okay.
I think they were there mostly to hear about the Blue Ribbon Commission update, and not as much about regionalization. But I was there to make my comment on regionalization and to hear what they had to say on it.
I just wondered, so did you speak to Betty Rosa?
I did. I asked a question. There was David Frank, one of the deputy commissioners.
Yes.
Regent Catania and Betty Rosa, the commissioner, were on the panel, and they spoke about a number of different issues. one of which was regionalization, and yeah, I was able to ask my question directly of those three folks.
So what was the question and what was your feeling about the answer?
What was my specific question? It had to do with the disconnect that there seems to be between this idea of regionalization being a conversation and the language that ended up in the New York State Register, which, after the comment period, my understanding is that becomes tantamount to law. And there's no backpedaling or soft soaping the language in the New York State Register. There is no language that talks about an opt-out or anything along those lines. So there just seems to be a disconnect between the language that's being spoken by SED officials and the language that ended up in the New York State Register.
So what was the response from?
The response is, I think they mentioned this, there is one of the regents, it's not Regent Catania, it's a regent from a different area, there was some discussion about reworking the language in the New York State Register to make it more, based upon the comments that they're hearing from the field, to try to soften some of that language so that it's made more clear that there is actually more of a conversational aspect to what's going on now.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm being clear.
No, I mean, you're being clear at transmitting what was spoken to you. I mean, I don't think that answer is clear, and I don't think that it's an appropriate answer. I mean, if you have something that is tantamount to law after a certain period of time, there is no other, like, well, we'll change what's in. No, that's not going to happen.
A lot of the language on the SED website it looks very, very different from what is what the language reads, how the language reads in the register.
Maybe therein lies the hidden agenda.
Paul, could I?
Sure, please.
So if you are following the Long Island dialogue that's coming out, one of the things that you'll notice there is that there's a massive concern about this emergency rulemaking process, okay? And they're hitting it on some legal grounds. I think what's a little disconcerting, and I'll say it publicly for the first time, is they are now being hit back with, we're in a 60-day process of gathering comment, so we're not going to change what's listed in the registry until after that's done. So they're being hit with an accusation of, you didn't follow process, and now the Long Island's group is being hit back with the same thing. Well, we are going to follow process now, and we'll take your comments, but there's no real commitment to change the wording of the registry at this point until after the comment period is finished.
Right.
So I think we're going to have to keep a really very close eye on this. I do question, and I remain questioning, at what point does the local Board of Education get involved? When do our other stakeholders get involved? If it's 18 people sitting around a table making these regionalization plans without input, I'm a little bit nervous about that. Whether I'm at Massena or whether I'm at a school that's facing some very challenging times coming forward. I think that in education, we need to have that discourse.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So that's my bit on regionalization.
Hopefully we talk about it again next meeting. I don't think it's going to go
It's not
away.
going anywhere.
No, good.
We'll certainly keep a close eye on what state officials are doing and what our colleagues downstate
So
are doing.
maybe Ron, you could give us another overview of what the regionalization process looks like locally. What will you experience as the superintendent throughout this process, and where are you at in this process now?
So we're really in the first convening stage right now, which is we've talked about some basic elements of where we are in public education, especially here in the North Country. We have until the 1st of December to complete our strengths and needs assessment with state ed, which was a 30-month extension. Ours was in by November 1st. So that's been completed. I'll be quite honest, Kevin, if you were to ask me to give you a very detailed roadmap of where we're supposed to be and when we're going to get there, I don't have that. I think that in many ways we're still building it as we're flying this plane. At each superintendent's meeting, we are supposed to talk about it to some extent, but again, we also have full agendas during those meetings, so I'm not really sure when we start getting to the meat and potatoes, which will probably be once. So I can tell you a little bit. Once all of the districts put their strength and needs assessment survey into the portal with State Education Department, that comes back, and then Tom will be looking at that, and then we'll be talking about that as a group. What are the strengths? What are the needs? That could be a very informative process. There may be things that we'll come to realize that, gee, maybe our BOCES collaboratively, we could offer something that's allowed under state law currently that we're not doing. So I think that's really where we are, but I can't give you an exact calendar of when we're going to be talking and what we're going to be talking about specifically at this point.
Okay. We'll ask again next meeting. Thanks.
Okay, that concludes my report. We'll move on to reports from administration and Mr. Burke.
So to begin with, I would like to take this opportunity to welcome our varsity girls volleyball team, and I would ask that they actually come forward. I'd like to read an email that I received about them through our athletic department, and also to present them with certificates. So last Wednesday, I received probably one of the neatest emails I think I've gotten in almost a 30-year career. And it starts out to Mr. Reagan. Hello, Mr. Reagan. I'm a basketball coach at Osable Valley Middle High School, Section 7. But I also serve as an event staff for our athletic program. And I had the pleasure of watching your volleyball team this evening as they competed in the sub-regional game. With all the negative in the world, I try to frequently highlight the positive. And your volleyball team and fans truly embodied all the positive that should come along with sports. Each and every player met me with a smile when they got here, and their positivity and enthusiasm for the game and for one another was beautiful and a joy to witness. Your fans were loud and proud, and your coaches were positive and encouraging, and their love of the game and the girls was very obvious. You should be so proud, as I'm sure you are. It was a great night of volleyball, and I wish your team all the luck as they carry on in the state tournament. Ladies, that is far more valuable than any banner that you could possibly hang in the gymnasium. Congratulations, and a certificate for each of you. Try without the microphone. Caitlin Benham. Allie Lincoln. Madison Point. Nyla Tillman. Adriana Summers. Abigail Labarge. Peyton McDermott. Guyandunda Thompson. Thank you. Lauren Park. Jenna Price. Madden Hearn. Mackenzie Moore. And Rhiannon Lazure. And certainly, Coach Deshay. Congratulations. And I do want to thank you, ladies, for representing Massena with such class and dignity. It was absolutely a joy to watch you play on the court and all the fun that you had. You guys can say, that's fine. Again, congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, they had to sit through all that regionalization.
Okay, the next item on is I'm requesting the board approval for the capital outlay project for this year in the amount of $81,687,000 to be awarded to Core Climate, and that will be for the third phase of our HVAC control system here at the high school. Any questions with that? Okay. I'm also asking for approval from the board to enter into a contract with Tyler Technologies for the Traversa routing system for our transportation department in the amount of $37,989, which is aidable through transportation aid at 90%. I'm also asking the board for approval for the New York Power Authority resolution. This is for our second 10-year renewal or review, and I've shared with the board the resolution as well as some of the items that are included in that, which some of the highlights. A lot of it goes to different agencies that make up the local government task force, which is the Town and Village of Waddington, Town of Louisville, Town and Village of Massena, as well as the school districts Madrid, Waddington, and Massena. One item here is under the emergency response funding, money going to each of those respective areas' first responder groups. Energy efficiency projects of up to $1.5 million. Electric vehicle chargers, advancing renewable energy generation, shoreline stabilization monies for the river course at Louisville Landing, and monies for the multi-use trail as well as other recreational activities. Questions on the NYPA agreement?
Now, I think you pointed out, Ron, that there were really only a couple of things that were related to monies that would be distributed by the Power Authority that we would likely see any real benefit from.
Right. The biggest one would probably be the recreational funding of $5 million that we may be able to garner some money from. What that application process looks like, I'm still trying to get that information. There was one in there for, so I declined the EV chargers, and the rationale for that is the strings that were attached to it were basically strings that had unknown dollar commitment on the part of the school district, and I just couldn't do that at this time. Okay. Any questions on the Power Authority agreement?
I don't know how often they meet, but could we get an update when they do meet as to what was discussed? The local government task force?
Yeah, I think I have attended 3 meetings. They're sporadic,
Yep.
but yes,
If we
absolutely.
could just get some minutes
Yep.
or just a quick synopsis.
Sure.
I sat on that for quite a long time.
Mhm. Also asking for the board to authorize the adoption of the New York State Deferred Compensation Plan, which is another option for our active employees for post-retirement finances. And there is no cost to our district. Any questions on that resolution? Okay, under the Smart Bond Act, we replaced and installed smart boards in all of our classrooms. So the old overhead projectors that went with the old smart boards are now obsolete, and we're looking to dispose of those in accordance with our board policy. I also have a field trip request for junior high for their annual trip. This year they will be going to Washington, D.C., and that will be May 14th through the 17th. I'm also requesting that the board create a special education instructional coach. We have instructional coaches at other areas, and given the growing number of students with special needs, this instructional coach will provide the much needed support that our teachers are looking for to best accommodate the needs of our children. And my final item is to request the board to authorize a settlement with the New York State Department of Motor Vehicles for deficiencies that were found in the triannual audit of our 19A records. That's it. That's all that I have.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Burke. We'll move on now to recommended actions. First up is the items that are on the consent agenda. Do I have anyone requesting any of the consent agenda items to be removed? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Consent agenda carries. Moving on to individual items for action. First is the approval of the student ex officio handbook.
So moved.
Any comments, questions on the student ex officio handbook? I hope that your successors will find it helpful. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Next is the approval of the 2024-25 capital outlay project letter of recommendation. A motion, please.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Approval of the Traversa contract.
So moved.
Okay, any comments or questions?
I have a question. When I was looking at the contract and I was doing the hours, the hourly rate seems a bit high. Is that for technical assistance, Ron, or why are they charging $205 an hour?
Yes, it's also for them to be on site as well.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
That's for a limited amount of time, right?
It is very limited, yes.
Any other questions on the Traversa contract? We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Next is the approval of the New York Power Authority resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? No comments from the former local government task force member?
None that will be constructive.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Approval of the deferred compensation program for employees.
So moved.
Any comments or questions? Guess my only comment is I'm sorry that this took so long to get in place. I'm not really sure why that is, but I'm very, very happy to see that we're acting on this. I think this is important. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries. Approval of the Washington, D.C. field experience trip.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor? Opposed? Next is approval to create a special education instructional coach.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Approval of the settlement offer with the New York State Department of Motor Vehicles.
Second.
Any comments or questions on that? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. And for personnel action items, we'll turn that back over to Mr. Burke.
Mr. Haggett, I recommend approval of items listed as 1 through 42 in the personnel list.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, that concludes our business. Do we have any items that, for future agendas that board members would like to see included?
I would like to have a conversation about one of the board goals that was kind of divided into 3 different things. I'd like to talk about some ideas and brainstorm about a reception for the seniors near the end of the school year. I'd like to somehow link that to Rotary and see if we could get some Rotary people to come to the reception as well. I mean, if we're linking seniors to the community, there might be some opportunities for people to meet small business owners locally and possibly become employed upon graduation, or just to have an adult different than just ourselves to communicate with. And I just want to brainstorm about what that could look like, where we could have it, how we could maybe link it with, you know, other activities that are going on for seniors at the end of the school year, and not, you know, have conflicts so that seniors could attend, et cetera. I'd really like to get our participation up for the program that we recently started, where we're asking seniors to give us their personal information so that we can life track them. You know, I think that all of those things, we could have a better understanding of what our students' needs are, so that hopefully we can do a better job and have a greater sense of what student needs look like in the future, as far as graduation, how they feel they've been prepared for whatever their next venture is going to be, whether it's in the workforce or whether it's at a trade school or whether it's college.
Would you consider the idea of doing this on sort of an ad hoc committee level and
Yeah.
bringing recommendations back to the full board rather than engaging the 9-member board
Absolutely. Yeah,
in that conversation?
absolutely.
I'd certainly be interested in working with you on that.
That would be great.
Maybe, you know, one other board member and the three of us, along with Mr. Burke, who happens to have a connection to Rotary.
And I think Isabel too. I mean, if we can, that would be great, because I'd love to have her input. Isabel, are you on the student council?
Yes, I am.
Okay, is that a requirement for ex officio, or is that just a happenstance?
The election for ex officio does take place amongst the student council, so it's more than likely that you're a part of the student council.
Okay, okay. Because in order to get good participation for LifeTrack, I think really your group needs to be part of our group.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
Yeah.
Would it be possible to also involve some members of the high school, you know, have Alan, because it seems like it should be a bigger committee, so we can really plan that out.
Yes.
And that way we're not interfering with any of the senior events that
Yes.
Alan would know, or that Mr. Oliver would know.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll work with Mr. Oliver to come up with a couple of reps from the high school as well.
And so why don't we establish you and I as, I mean, we've got slightly more time than
Yeah.
folks in the working world.
Yep.
And we can coordinate with Mr. Burke, and he can coordinate with folks at the, you know, faculty at the high school, and we'll sit down.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. Any other items for future agendas from members of the board?
Do we have any updates on graduation? I know not last month, the month before, we talked about engaging stakeholders with potential alternatives or ideas on our graduation ceremonies, you know, as we kind of get, I know it's still a ways out, but, you know, I think the earlier that we get some of that engagement and feedback, the sooner we can have those conversations and give advance planning to our high school administrators and staff.
I'm wondering if that could be a little bit of an offshoot of this subgroup, you know, the ad hoc committee,
Yeah.
to talk about the ceremony perhaps as well. Again, that way we have stakeholders, most stakeholder groups, with the exception of the parents at that point. But that could very well be part of that conversation, I think.
Absolutely.
Anything else from board members? Okay, next is communication from the public and press. We don't have anyone here from either the public or the press. I wanted to give Mr. Burke a lot of credit for coming up with the idea of honoring the girls' volleyball team. I think that is definitely, that type of thing is something that we need to do more of in terms of just recognition of things of a positive nature that are happening in the district, particularly with students, but also with staff and programs. If we have programs and staff that are doing work that's extraordinary in some way, I think calling them out and giving a little bit of public time to recognize their efforts, I think that's an excellent use of our time as a board. And just along those lines, I wanted to, I don't think we ever made anything of it at the time that it happened, but back in, I believe it was October, Mr. Halliday, we heard about it through our channels, the board update and so forth from Mr. Burke, but we never made a mention of it in a public setting. Mr. Halliday received an email from folks from, I believe, the Capital Region who decided to make a trip to Mount Azure on the same day that our junior high kids were doing a hike of Mount Azure back earlier in the fall, and they wrote Mr. Halliday an email just lauding the behavior of the entire group of junior high school kids that were on that hike. They were polite, they were respectful, there was no swearing, there was no horseplay. It was all just a very, very positive experience, and these two folks weren't really too excited about seeing school buses when they got to the trailhead at Mount Azure, but they were very, very pleasantly surprised by the attitude and the behavior of the students, and took the time to write a letter. So that's another, I think, another example of the kinds of positive behaviors and things that are going on in the district that we would be well served to recognize. I have nothing else. If there is nothing else from members of the board, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor? Have a great